It was a gray Thursday morning, the kind where even the air seemed heavy. The rain tapped against the windows of the small office tucked away in downtown Atlanta, our company headquarters. I adjusted my worn-out tie and logged into my computer like any other day. Around me, coworkers shuffled papers, refilled coffee cups, and murmured about deadlines. At 9 a.m. sharp, Mr. Carter, my boss, summoned me to his office. I wasn't worried. After 6 years of loyalty, late nights, and sacrifices, I figured a promotion might finally be on the table. Instead, as I stood there, rain dripping from my coat, he leaned back in his leather chair, lips curling into a smirk. "We're moving you down to junior operations," he said, voice dripping with mock sympathy. "New company vision." I blinked. "What? After everything I've—" He laughed, actually laughed. Loud, cold, and dismissive. "You should be grateful you're still here," he sneered, waving me off like a stray dog. I walked out of that office numb, heart pounding in my ears. But deep inside, a flicker of something stirred. Not anger. Not yet. Something bigger. The demotion wasn't just a slap in the face, and it was a public humiliation. By lunch, everyone knew. Whispers floated down the hallways like poison mist. Some gave me pitying glances, others looked away entirely. I buried myself in work, head down, swallowing every bitter taste of resentment. At night, I'd walk the cracked sidewalks of Midtown, replaying everything in my mind, every insult, every late-night project they took credit for. Every time I chose work over family, believing it would pay off. I could have quit. Maybe I should have. But instead, sitting at a dusty diner on Peachtree Street, staring into a half-empty cup of coffee, I made a different decision. If they wouldn't recognize my worth, I would create my own worth. Learn, adapt, outsmart. I started spending my evenings studying. Finance, leadership, strategy. I attended free business workshops, networked with anyone who would give me 5 minutes. Piece by piece, I rebuilt myself in the shadows. Every setback was a brick. Every humiliation, mortar. And deep down, a plan was starting to form. One evening, after another exhausting shift at my new junior role, I ducked into a quiet bookstore near Five Point Station to escape the rain. Rows of worn paperbacks, the smell of old pages. It was a forgotten world. As I wandered aimlessly, an older man with sharp eyes and a gentle smile approached me. He looked familiar, like someone important, but I couldn't place him. "You look like a man with a fire to prove something," he said, thumbing through a book on entrepreneurship. I chuckled dryly. Maybe, or maybe I'm just another guy who's been kicked when he's down. He smiled wider. "Sometimes being kicked down is the best thing that can happen. Forces you to look up." There was something about the way he said it. Calm. Sure. Like he knew something I didn't. Before I could ask his name, he slipped a business card into my hand and disappeared into the aisles. No goodbye. No explanation. I turned the card over. Just 3 words. "When you're ready." I didn't know it yet, but that meeting would change everything. The day of the gala came faster than I could prepare for. I stood in front of our cracked bedroom mirror, adjusting the second-hand suit I'd borrowed from my neighbor, Mr. Tund. It was a little tight across the shoulders, but tonight I didn't care about appearances. I cared about calmly. Someplace important. She laughed under her breath and returned to her screen. I wanted to tell her everything, about the call, the award, the CEO, but something in me said, let her see for herself. I walked out into the warm evening, the scent of grilled suya in the air, and the buzz of the city live all around me. Tonight, everything was going to change. I'd feel it deep in my bones. The Zenith Tech Gala was held at the prestigious Echo Hotel and Suites, a place I'd only ever seen in magazines. As I stepped into the glitter lobby, my breath caught. Men in tailored suits and women in shimmering gowns flowed through the grand hall like it was another world. I checked my reflection in a gold-trimmed mirror. Nervous, underdressed, determined. An usher smiled warmly and led me toward the main ballroom. Inside, a massive stage stood at front, bathed in golden lights. Banners that read, "Celebrating Innovation, Empowering Dreams," hung from the walls. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched the invitation card. I scanned the room, froze. There she was, Kemi, sitting at a table near the front with her group of friends from her office. She hadn't seen me yet. My heart pounded wildly. She must have gotten an invitation through her workplace. Zenith Tech was a massive company. What were the odds? I swallowed hard. This night, this moment, was about to become far bigger than I'd imagined. The evening unfolded like a dream, or maybe a carefully written script designed by fate. The CEO, a tall man with a commanding presence, finally took the stage. The chatter in the hall died down instantly. He spoke about innovation, resilience, and honoring those who dared to dream beyond their circumstances. My chest tightened with every word. And now, he said, his voice booming across the room, it's time to present our Rising Innovators Award to a man whose vision and perseverance caught our attention, Mr. Adewale Ogunleye. The spotlight swept across the audience and landed on me. There was a stunned silence. An applause broke out. I rose slowly, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes, but I only searched for one. I found her, Kimi, her mouth slightly open, eyes wide in disbelief. Her friend nudged her, whispering. She looked like she had seen a ghost. I walked toward the stage, my heart burned with a wild mix of pride, vindication, and a bittersweet ache. Finally, she would see. Over the next few weeks, I moved like a ghost through the company halls, unnoticed, underestimated, perfect. With Franklin's advice echoing in my mind, I quietly mapped Carter's every misstep. His vanity projects draining company funds, the high turnover he caused with his temper, the broken partnerships he tried to bury. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed people on the inside. I reached out to old colleagues, those he had sidelined, humiliated, forgotten. Over late-night coffees and hushed conversations in parking lots, I planted seeds. I didn't promise revenge. I promised something better, a future we built ourselves. Most were scared, a few were curious, and a precious handful were ready. I created a network, small but strong, ready to act when the time came. And every day Carter laughed louder, oblivious to the fact that the ground was crumbling beneath his feet. He had no idea, but he would soon. The first move had to be careful, clean, untraceable. I leaked documents, real ones, to the right board members, not anonymously, but through trusted allies who were tired of Carter's games. Financial reports showing massive losses, ignored legal warnings, employee dissatisfaction surveys buried deep in company files. I made sure the truth did the work for me. The effect was immediate. Rumors buzzed like angry hornets. Closed-door meetings multiplied. The air in the office shifted, tense, electric. Carter stormed around like a king under siege, barking orders no one rushed to follow anymore. One afternoon, I passed him in the hallway. He didn't even glance at me, but I saw it in his eyes, a flicker of doubt, of fear. For the first time, he wasn't laughing, and I wasn't finished yet. A week later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Meet me," the voice said. 7 p.m., Piedmont Park, by the old fountain. It was one of the senior board members, Mr. Jacobs, a sharp, cautious man who had built his fortune on reading people. That evening, the park was cloaked in winter darkness, the fountain frozen solid. Jacob stood waiting, bundled in a heavy coat. He didn't waste time. "We know what Carter's been hiding. We need a plan." I met his gaze steadily. "I have one." He listened, arms folded, nodding slowly as I laid it all out. Not just how to remove Carter, but how to rebuild stronger, better, for the employees, for the future. When I finished, he extended his hand. "You get us through this," he said, voice low but firm, "and we'll back you to take his place." My heart hammered. This was it. No turning back. I shook his hand, sealing the deal in the icy Atlanta night. But as I walked away, a single thought gnawed at me. If Carter found out too soon, he'd destroy me first. The next morning, I barely slept. I kept waking up, afraid it was all a dream. When the first light of dawn spilled across the sky, I was already dressed in my best shirt, the same one I'd worn to a dozen failed interviews. But this time, it felt different. I arrived at Zenith Tech's glass tower in Victoria Island just before 8 a.m. The building gleamed under the rising sun, a symbol of everything I had once thought was out of reach. At the lobby, a smartly dressed receptionist greeted me by name and offered me a seat. My palms were sweaty, but I held the folder tight against my chest like armor. After a few minutes, Mrs. Iroko appeared, her heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. "Come," she said with a bright smile. "The CEO is expecting you." I stood up, heart hammering again, and followed her down a long corridor filled with glass walls and framed photos of innovation awards. Each step felt heavier, not with fear this time, but with the weight of destiny unfolding right under my feet. The CEO's office was nothing like I imagined. It wasn't the cold, intimidating fortress I expected. Instead, it was warm, filled with bookshelves, family photos, and a massive window that framed the bustling city below like a living painting. He stood up as I entered and crossed the room to shake my hand firmly. "Adewale," he said, smiling with genuine warmth. "I've been looking forward to this meeting." I could hardly believe it. Me, the boy from the crowded streets of Mushin, sitting across from one of the most powerful men in the country. We talked for over an hour. He asked about my ideas, my vision, my struggles. He listened, really listened, the way Kemi never had. And then, just as casually as if he were offering me coffee, he said, "We want to invest in your startup. Full funding, full support. We believe you're the future." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back fiercely. I reached across the table and shook his hand again, this time with all the strength I had. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I won't let you down." As I left the Zenith Tech building, the Lagos sun was high, painting everything in a golden glow. I stood on the steps for a long moment, feeling the rush of taxis, the rhythm of street hawkers, the heartbeat of the city that had shaped me. In my pocket, the signed partnership agreement felt heavier than gold. My phone buzzed. A message from Kemi. Just 2 words. "Come home." I hesitated. For the first time in years, I wasn't racing back to explain myself, to defend my choices, to seek her approval. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. I would go, but on my terms. I was no longer the man who left home every morning carrying broken dreams in a tattered bag. I was walking home carrying the future. As I hailed a Keek to take me back, I smiled to myself. Something told me Kemi wasn't prepared for the man who would walk through that door. The Keiki ride back home was a blur. As the wind slapped my face and the Lagos traffic roared around me, I rehearsed what I would say. But deep down, I knew words weren't necessary anymore. The small, weather-beaten gate to our compound creaked as I pushed it open. Kids played football in the dusty yard. Women gossiped over buckets of laundry. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't the same man walking into it. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step a drumbeat in my chest. When I reached our door, it swung open before I could knock. There stood Kemi. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed like she had been crying. She looked me up and down, searching for the old desperation she used to recognize, but it wasn't there. "You're back," she said, voice brittle. "I am," I replied, my tone steady, almost unfamiliar even to my own ears. Behind her, the tiny living room we had shared for years seemed smaller now, a cage I had finally broken free from. She stepped aside, letting me in. I entered, carrying more than just myself. I carried the proof that dreams, once broken, could still rise stronger than ever. We sat across from each other in silence, the ticking wall clock sounding like thunder in the heavy air. Kemi fidgeted with the hem of her wrapper, avoiding my eyes. "You really made it," she whispered finally, almost like she couldn't believe it herself. I nodded once. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. "I never thought—" she started, then stopped, biting her lip. I didn't want to see you fail and drag me down with you." Her honesty stung more than any insult she had ever thrown at me. "But I never needed you to believe in me," I said quietly. "I just needed you not to tear me apart while I tried." She winced, the truth hitting her harder than any accusation. "I'm sorry," she said, the words trembling on her lips like fragile glass. For a long moment, I simply watched her. The woman I had once loved so fiercely, whose laughter I had chased, whose approval I had starved for. Now, I realized, I didn't need her validation anymore. What I needed was peace. And peace, I was beginning to understand, might mean letting go. The room felt heavy with the weight of things unsaid. Kemi reached for my hand, but I pulled back gently. Not out of anger, but from a deeper, quieter realization. I have a new beginning now, I said, my voice low but firm. A chance to build something real, something lasting. Her eyes glistened. Can we build it together? The question hung between us, fragile as a soap bubble. Once I would have grabbed that lifeline without hesitation. Once I would have begged for it, but not anymore. I need time, I said honestly, and space. Her face crumpled, but she nodded slowly, understanding more than my words could say. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years. I wasn't running away. I wasn't chasing anything. I was walking forward, finally, truly, into the life I had fought so hard for. As I stepped outside into the bright afternoon sun, the future spread out before me like an open road, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to walk it alone. Weeks passed like scenes from a movie I never thought I'd star in. Each morning, I walked into Zenith Tech's sleek offices, no longer a dreamer knocking on doors, but a partner building the future. I hired a small team, people like me who had been overlooked, underestimated, told their ideas were foolish. Together, we worked late into the nights, fueled by jollof rice, coffee, and a stubborn fire that refused to die. One evening, as the Harmattan winds dusted the streets outside, I stood by the window watching the city lights flicker like tiny flames. A message buzzed on my phone. It was Kemi again. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long moment. Forgiveness, closure, maybe even a new beginning, but this time on my terms. I wasn't sure what I would say yet. I only knew that fear no longer dictated my choices. I was steering my own ship now, across waters I had once been too scared to sail, and wherever it led, I was ready. We met at a quiet cafe near Freedom Park, a place where history whispered through the trees and musicians played soft tunes on battered guitars. Kemi looked nervous, clutching her handbag like it might save her. "I've been thinking a lot," she said after we ordered. "About us, about everything." I sipped my coffee, waiting. "I realized I laughed at your dreams because I was afraid," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid you'd fail, and afraid you'd succeed without me." For the first time, I truly saw her, not as the villain of my story, but as someone broken by her own fears. "I forgive you," I said softly. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Do you still? Is there still a chance for us?" I took a deep breath. The boy who had begged for love was gone. In his place sat a man who had learned to love himself first. "I wish you healing," I said gently. "But my journey is bigger now. It's not something I can fit into the old version of us." Her tears fell, but there was relief too, for both of us. We had finally let go. Months later, I stood once again under a blinding spotlight, this time at a global tech conference in London. The announcer called my name, and the crowd roared as I stepped onto the stage to receive another award, this time for Most Promising Innovator. As I spoke to the world, I thought back to the boy in the tiny apartment dreaming against the odds. I thought of Kemi, of the nights filled with arguments and doubts, of the moments when giving up seemed easier. But I didn't give up. I finished my speech with a promise, not just to the crowd, but to anyone out there still fighting unseen battles. Your dreams are seeds. Protect them. Nurture them. One day, the world will see what only you could see in the darkness. The applause thundered around me, but it was the quiet inside my heart that mattered most. I had lost things along the way, love, certainty, comfort. But what I gained was far greater. Freedom, purpose, and a life I had built with my own two hands. The best stories, I realized, aren't the ones where you are rescued. They are the ones where you rescue yourself. The end. Family. If this story touched you deep in your soul, please bless it with a like, Share it with someone chasing their dreams and subscribe for more real emotional journeys like this one. Remember, your story isn't over. It's just beginning. We launched a counterattack, revealing Carter's financial mismanagement, his underhanded deals with competitors, and the dirty tactics he used to keep power. The media exploded. His allies turned on him. And when the final blow came, a lawsuit filed by one of the investors he had scammed, it was over. Carter was finished. Standing at the head of the table, watching the board members applaud our victory, I realized something. The fight had cost me more than I had ever expected. But it had also shown me the true cost of leadership, the price of integrity, of doing what's right, even when the world is stacked against you. I looked around the room at the people who had stood by me, and finally felt the weight of all the years of struggle lift off my shoulders. I had won. And this time, it wasn't just about taking a company back. It was about proving to myself that I could lead with honor, no matter the cost. The tables had turned. The end. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more captivating journeys. Thanks for coming along with me through this wild ride. Stay tuned for the next one. You won't want to miss it.